Welcome to Tech Startup Stories, hosted by Natalie Binns. This is the podcast that takes you behind the scenes of the B2B startup world.
Hi, I'm Natalie Binns, and I'm the host of Tech Startup Stories. This podcast is really designed to share the unique and challenging journeys of all the people that are building small startups to scale-ups in the tech space. My background? Initially, I was in sales, and then I moved into marketing, and I've been lucky enough to work with some amazing tech companies. But my passion is really startups. And that led me back to helping tech startups set up their marketing and go-to-market functions where the budgets are tight and the resources are few and far between. So let's get into this week's podcast. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the podcast. This week, we have Paul Barnes, who is the CEO of Overe. And Paul and I go way back. We've known each other, and he tells me 15 years, but I think that's a total lie. I think it's more likely to be a couple of years. But we worked together when his company was acquired by the company that I was working for. And surprise, surprise, it was in cybersecurity. So welcome to the show, Paul. Thanks for coming on. Why don't you tell us a bit more about Overe?
Hey, Natalie, it's great to see you again. And long time. Yeah, a couple of years, I'll go with that. So, so cybersecurity. So that's been my life for many years, early 2000s. And as you mentioned, joined forces with Webroot, the company you used to work with, and kind of continued on that journey for, up until now. So I've got over 20 years. But I think, met some great people along the way. We've had some great ideas, and it was when we exited again from our business in about 22. We decided to kind of pivot into a different world. So we were very much around securing endpoints and with the endpoint security we had. And then we thought, oh, well, now's a good time to look at where the client's data is. So we formed, we got a few good folks together. We formed the company about 2 years ago now, and we're off to the races with the products and now revenue. So
Wow, revenue already?
we actually, it was one of the things which we wanted to do before kind of jumping into the whole startup world, is to kind of make sure we did a lot of prototyping and testing. So the idea has been noodling around our heads for about probably 3 years, but we didn't actually land on the actual kind of execution part until about 2 years ago. So that's kind of one of the things which I'm very passionate about, is like product discovery, validation before you go both feet into an idea. So that's kind of where things accelerated, and there's 9 of us working on this project. And
9 of you already. Wow, that's amazing. So tell me, we know there's a million cybersecurity companies across the world. There seems to be one popping up every 5 minutes. What made you take that leap into setting up your own startup that's in that space?
yeah, so I think the thing which kind of triggered us was the problem space. And I must admit, we were a little naive. I think although we had a startup from 20 years prior, a lot's changed. Like when we had a startup, there's a handful of cyber companies in each space. So for endpoint security, you could probably count them on your hands, and then network security the same again. I think I can't remember if there's 3,000 plus now active cyber companies. It's crazy. You look at any set. So it's probably we should have kind of looked a bit deeper into that. And with that, like, how do you attract investors and more importantly customers when there's so many there? So the idea which we're going after is very relevant, and there's definite need to solve it. I think the gap we saw, and it still exists, is we focus on B2B and specifically around MSPs, managed service providers, and there's not really a great solution to solve the things which we're trying to solve. So I think that's where we kind of found our angle. And but super noisy out there, and it's hard to kind of rise above that noise. And there's all sorts of things which have changed in 20 years. The volume of companies, how to access the buyer is very different. And there's channel partnerships, the channel's changed. And it's kind of, if I'd known all this, it would have been one of those things where I kind of think twice, or maybe taking a little bit more time. But I think we definitely made the right decision to go for it.
Well, I mean, there's so many companies that are trying to solve problems to help businesses, and the bad guys are just not going away. They're just, continuing to come back. So it's definitely an opportunity. So you've built the company to 9 people, and I know from when we worked together, you have a really unique perspective because you have that sales commercial mindset, but you're also very product focused. So tell me a little bit more about the kind of co-founding team and what are your kind of roles and responsibilities as a founding team.
So we've got a really nice blend. So I actually started off way back when, early 2000s, as a technical resource. So I was building installer packages for Prevex, which was that antivirus company, which got acquired for Webroot. But I think quickly realized that I was not great at that, and then pushed me into sales. And when you're in sales, you speak to customers a lot, and you hear all the problems, and you bring it back to the team, and it naturally kind of forms into that product management role. So really from, early 2000s, very much a product manager. And alongside me, my co-founder, Marcus Hartwig, he was the founding engineer of Prevex. He was the technical guy. He is the guy which can make things super efficient, lightweight, and scale to millions, because this is kind of what we did to Prevex and Webroot along the way. So he's like right-hand man. I bring him the problems. Him and his team go and find the best way to fix it. And also we've got another couple of co-founders. So there's a few of us on the co-founding team, and a couple of them actually came from King, so the Candy Crush folks. So there's a connection there for our old CEO. And so we've one of the key things we want in our product to make it super, user friendly, easy and intuitive. I think a lot of tech companies, well, cyber companies, should I say, kind of expect their customers to be cyber experts themselves, which is really not the case. And it's all about frictionless security and having one-click resolution to problems. So that's kind of what the blend of the team is amazing. And then we've got other folks which are just experts at what they do. Being very careful not to choose just cyber people into the team, because if you get cyber people in, you get more of the same. You do need cyber researchers, security analysts. That goes without saying. I think when you get onto the engineering UX side of things, it's important to get that blend, because you start to see things through a different lens, and not so much a simplified lens, but just something which can translate better to the masses, rather than this kind of thing which you see in most cyber companies, B2B, is like it's a language which not many can understand unless you got a CISP or whatever security credentials.
There's so many things that you've said there that I want to touch on. So, on the kind of diversity of backgrounds of the people that you're hiring, I think that's so important. And it's such a small space. Everyone knows everyone in cybersecurity. I'm sure your LinkedIn profile is 90% people in that space. And for many years, mine was the same until I sort of leapt out of it for a while. What sort of backgrounds do you think translate best into cyber from other kind of tech spaces or other spaces?
Great question. I think things have changed a little. I think with the advent of like a lot of new technologies which you can lean on more. Where, say, back in the day, you used to just get cyber people in to kind of do reverse engineering or like build machine learning models, but all of that's being kind of productized, and you can just plug and play, and the shift is more around folks which can focus on customer problems and how to translate that into a usable solution, scalable and usable solution. So I think it's that mindset of just kind of really being close to the customer, even though like traditionally in cyber, it has been kind of, I'd say, semi-waterfall in the way things have been built over the years, where you kind of start with a problem, they'll beaver away in the background, and then out like 6 to 12 months later, you come out with a feature, and it's like, yeah, this solves it, but then like the usability of that is not great. And so we're all about, I think the shift has been around more that UX, CX, customer experience piece. I think that's super important now, because there are so many tools out there. The clients haven't got much time to swivel chair amongst multiple tools, and so really understanding how they do the work, and get into that kind of like that customer centric mentality. Having folks which can really do that well, communicate well, is probably the right mix of folks. And it's just, whether it's folks who can identify problems to kind of translate that to the engineering teams, or I always say is bring the engineers on the customer calls as well to kind of give them that side. But also from a marketing perspective, a sales perspective is just kind of really listening for those pain points, digging in, and finding folks which are great interviewers. So then that translates into your core messaging frameworks, which then kind of allows you to go out and hopefully, attract customers, because attracting customers is super difficult in cyber. Unless you've got some great partners to kind of take you to market and give you a leg up there. If you're doing it alone, trying to build a direct product, which we're trying to do, or we're equally doing partnerships and things like that, but it's really challenging unless you've got compelling messaging, which kind of hits on that spot. Yeah, said a lot there, but that's kind of, yeah, just be close to the customer. Do ride-alongs. That's my biggest tip for anyone before even kind of doing so yeah, when you've got a startup idea, it's like, let's first sit in your shoes. Let's kind of sit with the kind of key stakeholders and, really listen to how they do the job. And then there's all these opportunities which arise from there, rather than assuming, because a load of cyber founders come out of, whether it's intelligence agencies, government, or wherever, they might be employed somewhere else and say, oh, I think I've got an idea, and they've got an idea, build a product, but they've not spent any time validating with customers and really understanding the pain, and then they wonder why things aren't taking off. They're wondering why investment's harder for them to get, because it's not compelling enough.
So I love that emphasis on the customer experience. And I think that is a new, or certainly something that not every organization is focused on. And certainly my days in cyber, it seemed to be whoever had the most complex and intelligent solution seemed to be, what you were aiming for. But on the go-to-market, you've also mentioned, you've talked about channel. I know that you're building a global business. Channel partners are super important. Getting into those customers in that kind of saturated space is really challenging and can be super expensive. What have
Yeah.
been outside of partnership, what have been your main kind of go-to-market models that you're kind of going down?
Well, we're still early. We have paying customers, which have come through our kind of PLG approach, product-led growth approach. So our idea was that, and we're still testing it out. It seems to be working in some ways. Other ways, we've got some tuning to do. But we're all about showing value very early, because I think the whole challenge with our buyers, amount of time to test the product and understand what's going on. So you've got no barriers to entry. So make it very easy for them to see value. So we came up with a free tool, part of our platform, so it allows them to quickly see the problems. And our problem space is around identifying vulnerability, security risks associated with your staff. So specifically Microsoft 365, which is an absolute nightmare to manage for our clients. And anyone with Microsoft 365, it's, if you're an administrator, you'll feel the pain there. So we're all about, hey, can we show the problems very early in that kind of customer life cycle? And then from that, launch them into kind of, hey, here's why you need the paid product. And so that's some of the things which, as far as our direct model, we've been doing kind of paid search for that keyword stuff. Still testing it, doing it on Reddit, and we're doing Google, the standard stuff. But then really the rest of the go-to-market is working with folks who have a captive audience already in that space. And so and it's hard because there's distributors which we'd want to potentially want to work with, and they've got probably 5 other competitors listed along you. So how does that work? What does the kind of funding look to get you ahead of that? And so as a startup, you probably don't want to go for those guys, and you want to go for folks which are limited portfolio, and they're just kind of more, hey, here's kind of what we have, one of each product in the segment, which goes back to kind of differentiation. If you're able to find a problem space which is new but real and needs solving now, then these distributors would love, or these channel partners would love to kind of add you to the arsenal, because it's something new for them to add on to their monthly recurring and things like that. So different model. And then there's things like our earliest iteration of Overe was an OEM version. So we were thinking, well, we've been at vendors and we know how hard it is to build this kind of platform. Why don't we license this out? And so that was kind of the early thought. And then it was actually called something else before Overe. And so we quickly pivoted, because people were like, well, actually, you're building something really valuable. Why give that to someone else at a lower price point, build a brand? So that's kind of a journey.
That leads me on to, you've been in this industry a long time, you've been in business a long time, you met lots of people along the way, you built up a great network. What's been the most challenging part? I mean, obviously, you've mentioned some of the challenges already, but what's been the biggest surprise to you on what you weren't expecting when you started the business?
It's a great question, and I think it comes with. So we're fortunate. We were able to self fund this for a little while. We've got 9 people, and that's expensive to kind of fund. And so we've needed to take on some investment. And so biggest surprise was at the first iteration of Overe, we were a limited company in the UK. We've got amazing networks. People are very passionate about us and what we do. And they were actually saying to us, and we saw this when we were going to people who didn't know us as well from an investment perspective, there's a lot of reticence around investing into UK companies. And which is sad because, great ideas, great founders, great potential. And we just saw so many headwinds in the UK and our US network. So our network's mostly US based. So I think with Weber US company, that's kind of where all the folks we're talking about, people we knew before we kicked off this podcast. There's a lot of people we know, and they're all US, and they're all saying the same. It's like, oh, we'll invest in you if you're a US company. And it's not just because of their tax benefits, it's also because they see the potential for us to get higher multiples. So it was, I think at the time, it was like 2.5 times more valuable for us to be a US company. And we could, so what we did, we immediately we did the flip, so Delaware flip. So we're a Delaware company and then rolled us UK Limited underneath. And immediately we're taking checks straight away. Literally, as soon as we put the incorporation documents in, it was like, yeah, okay, that's great. We'll come on the journey with you. And some would have done it in the UK, but we would have got a less evaluation. Also, the fundraising mechanics in the UK are broken, in my opinion. For early stage startups, pre-revenue, pre-product, where you can't value your company because it's just an idea, it's not conducive to their businesses like that. So yeah, that was a bigger surprise because we thought, yes, we could be potentially, I'm not saying we're going to be another Darktrace or Sophos or whatever, a UK cyber company which had grown big, Immersive Labs, there's a bunch of others, but we thought we could get along the way of like being noticeable in the UK as that. So that was a bigger surprise and disappoint. Weren't able to do it. There's a lot of headwinds in the investment side globally, and I think it's just made it impacted it even more.
Yeah, and I think that probably opens up more doors for you internationally, because you've got a UK team and you've now got the ability to engage with the US market, which, many startups that start in the UK don't plan to try and break America for many, many years, because, they want to build up and prove the concept and find product market fit on home turf before they try and go after a new market. So I think you're definitely going to have some benefits to that. Um, do you think that you're going to need to get more people out there? Have you got staff out there already?
Yeah, we're starting to work with folks out there, especially on the kind of sales, channel development, business development side. So I think that's operations are over here. We got folks in Spain as well, a bunch in Barcelona, and yeah, we'll definitely doing the usual kind of. I was in the States a couple of weeks ago, kind of figuring out where would be good to set up camp, and so yeah, we're back there again later next month. So we'll do it. I think sales operations. I think we'll have a sales and operations will be in the UK primarily until we kind of figure those things out and see. I think long term for a company like us, which is so laser focused on a problem, which other more established vendors aren't currently solving, the natural thing to happen to us is an exit to another vendor. I think that's kind of what we also looked at is like doing the Delaware flip and structuring our business that way would make it much easier, more attractive for most cyber vendors to kind of look at us that way. So, and this is like goes back to how we built the platform. We made sure that I mentioned we were going to be OEM ready, which is like your headless API ready. And as we've acquired many businesses over the years in prior companies, we know like any potential acquire would love to have something which is easy to plug in and show value very quickly. And that's kind of how we geared ourselves, not to build something which will then take 6 months, a year, or a couple of years to kind of get integrated into portfolio. So yeah, all kind of routes are heading to the US. But I think for other UK companies, if you can get sales traction in the UK, I think that's great, because a buyer in the UK is much more, how can I put it, it's tougher to break into the UK market than the US. Yeah, the buyer cycles are much longer, I felt, and I hear this from other founders. So another thing we've been on a couple of accelerators. The more recent one is Plexel. So Plexel is kind of a decent bat, and there's on with another 20 or so cyber startups, all kind of similar or thereabouts stage as us, and yeah, they're all saying the same challenges around the UK, and just generally getting traction. And yeah, something to kind of keep in mind as anyone out there who's kind of thinking of starting up is almost think US first, and just in my opinion, that's where the buyers are easier.
Interesting. So it's easier to sell into the US. Good to know. Good to know. And so you've been doing this business Overe for 2 years. You've walked me through the journey so far. It sounds like a journey of about 10 years. You're already talking about what your future plans are in terms of an exit. How long do you expect this journey to kind of keep going?
Oh, yeah, we're having fun at the moment. So it's not. I think within a few years we'll kind of know if this is actually working and viable. I think we're already seeing the early signs, especially with paying customers and really advanced kind of partnership deals in the works. So yeah, I think 5 years, we'd love to kind of look back and see where we're at. And yeah, we get to, we've all got these targets, and that's one of the things. I think one of the most important things is that we've got an amazing group around us. So we've not just got our core team of co-founders, we've got advisors, some of our angel investors as well, that just like super experienced, help us out a lot. And our chairman, he's great for us, just kind of helping us think like, where do you want to be, both personally and where do you want your company to be? So you start with like the question, where do you as a co-founder or founder want to be? What's your kind of number, let's say, or kind of what's your lifestyle? And then kind of working through that whole process of, okay, to get there, you need to do this. It's a great exercise. I recommend it for all, because sometimes you could just be like, okay, this ambling along, just trying to figure out, but you need that kind of structure in place. And so, yeah, to answer the question, we're having fun. We'll keep doing it as long as it's makes sense, and get to our kind of goal, or hopefully surpass it.
And I'm guessing one of your goals is more time on the golf course.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, although my wife wouldn't agree, but no, it's yeah, quality of life. It's hard being in the startups. It's a lot of hours. Love to get some time back, and yeah, having some 3 kids as well. It's a lot of stress on the family, I guess. But they're great. Like, we've done it before. And that comes with the accelerated time frame of 2 years. Is that because we've done similar things before? We've taken, I wouldn't say shortcuts, but we just kind of fast track certain areas, and because we know the customer really well, we've lived and breathed that industry for 20 odd years. It allows us to kind of make decisions quickly and confidently and not pivot. So we've not pivoted away, apart from that OEM side where we're like, hey, let's OEM and license our technology out rather than building a brand and a company. That was the only pivot we did. And so everything's been pretty much, okay, we're going after this North Star. We're gonna nail it. And it comes with, I can't stress that validation, that customer feedback early on. That is the most important thing, just to make sure you've got that really clear roadmap, and everyone in the business is like, all right, we're going after that. And that'll accelerate things, because most startups you see, all right, we tried this, it worked. We worked with the client, and he asked us to do this, and this, but no one else in the whole client base wants it. So we just wasted this time. We lost that client, and all those kind of stories where it's like, we've said no to a lot of things. Actually, it's like, no, it's not something which we're going to do, or no, not now kind of thing.
So I'm guessing that being able to and feeling comfortable saying no is a great piece of advice that you'd give other founders. What would be the other things that you would kind of say to anybody that's thinking of setting up their own startup or have just started on their journey? What would be the tips and tricks that you'd share?
I think I've said a few times just around just getting that validation done early on. There's some great frameworks and books, which you should read out there. I'm really big fan of Silicon Valley's product group. Marty Kagan did a book called Inspired, which for any product-centric, user-centric person, it kind of just emphasizes the need for product discovery, customer discovery early on before actually building anything. Because building things nowadays is it's much easier. Like I was introduced to Lovable a couple of weeks ago. I don't know if you heard of that app. It's now an app where you could just like chat GPT, but it's like builds an app for you. And so you say, hey, I'm this. So this is my persona, and you go and put it in. So like the actual coding, that's another thing to keep an eye on, is like how technology is progressing. So as long as you get the customer problem validated, like don't labor over how to build it and spend too much time thinking about code, and just get prototypes, get validation, then go after it, because that's where it pays dividends. And say that to everyone. And yeah, there's a lot of bright folks in the startup industry which shortcut that, and they're wondering why the product isn't getting traction and solving the problems like they thought it would.
Great. Thank you. Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast, being an amazing guest.
I appreciate it, Natalie, and thanks a lot for having me.
That's it for this episode of Tech Startup Stories. Have a story you'd like us to share, or a topic you'd want to cover? Reach out and we'd love to hear from you. Until next time, take care.